What is one of the first settings you change on a brand new Android phone?
If I'm using a phone that doesn't have Gboard, the first thing I install is Gboard. That's one thing. Second thing I do is I set up the blue light filter for the night, which I find after 8 o'clock, no more.
Keeps you sleepy.
Yeah.
Nice. And then follow up for that was, what is your absolute favorite, most used app excluding first-party Google apps?
Oh, that's another good question. Most used app besides Google apps. I mean, there's a lot. Maybe like one that's not as well known. I travel a lot. There's an app called Time Shifter.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you
yeah.
Do you see that one? So I do use that to figure out when to sleep. For those of you who don't know, it's to help you with jet lag. So if you're going somewhere, when do you sleep? When so that when you get there, you're more on the right schedule and ready to go to work.
When we talk about AI fatigue, a major source of it on Reddit is the feeling that Google Assistant is being replaced by Gemini. It's brilliant at complex tasks, but often struggles with basic utilities like setting timers or turning off lights. How do you ensure that the fundamental local zero latency tasks aren't then sacrificed for pushing to cloud-based LLM kind of capabilities instead?
Yeah, this is a really good question. And by the way, for all of you who are contributing to Reddit, or in really any other forum, I do want you to know that we do read all that, and so this particular topic is really important to us. I do think that the new capabilities that you get with LLMs are awesome, but we need, as consumers, call mom and turn the flashlight on to be faster, better, 100% reliable, etc. And with LLMs, that can be true most of the time, and then occasionally you get some different behavior, right?
Sure.
So what we're focused on is a hybrid system there, where the simple tasks are done in the simplest way possible and in the most effective and fastest way possible, and the more complex tasks are done with the smartest possible system. So what you need for that is a router, if you will, that's capable of handling both those, and you need an engine on either side of that router that is capable of handling that simple task, and then you need a mechanism by which those two sync up with each other. So, if you tell it to call mom, and that does it really simply, and then later on you want to ask a follow-up question that is much more complicated, you kind of need it to be aware that you've called mom just recently, right? So that's why it's a little bit complicated, but we are working on making a more holistic system that is a hybrid that we'll be rolling out in the near future. So I hope we can answer those questions really well.
It's an interesting position now where Google is effectively powering the AI models for both of the biggest platforms in the world, essentially. So how do you balance being a critical partner for Apple Intelligence whilst also trying to keep Android's own implementation of Gemini separate and competitive and with its own unique abilities?
Well, I mean, Google's a big company, and we work with a lot of partners that we also have other parts of Google where we compete.
Of course,
and I think so. We're quite used to that. So one example is that Google has a huge cloud division, and so it's not just Apple that we're powering a lot of AI for. It's many companies in the world, and that's a business for us, and it's a great business, and we're proud of all that. And at the same time, we have to take that same technology and we have to build great products with it, and we have to go compete with folks. And so we're very used to that. I think that's and we have different teams that focus on that. I'm the last person probably at Google, maybe in the world, to know what Apple is doing with our technology.
Sure.
I'm just not involved with that as much. But one of the things that I think is really special about what we're trying to do with Android is really to go from what we call an operating system to an intelligence system. And so it's not about just adding a chatbot. That I think that adding a chatbot is good. I think chatbots were introduced a couple of years ago. Some other companies are building their chatbot now. That's good, and I'm sure it'll be great. But I think we need to go way beyond the chatbot, for folks. It's really about how do you take this technology and be intentful about it, not AI for AI's sake. I don't think consumers are interested in that.
Nice.
I think they want real ways that problems they have every day get easier. How do you make my life better? And when I talk about an operating system going to an intelligence system, it's really about introducing lots of those different capabilities in different places, deeply integrated with your day-to-day experience, where things can get better. And I mean, one example of that, just one simple example of that, is the keyboard. operating systems have had input methods for a long time, right? And we're kind of the micromanager of the operating system as the user. That's how we've built computing for 40 years. You think about what you want to do, you break it down into all the tasks, and you either tap or swipe or whatever you're going to do. The keyboard is the best manifestation of that, right? You literally think of the thing you want to say, you break it down into words, you break the words down into taps, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it works. We'll all continue to use it. My kids use voice all the time, right?
Same.
Yeah, but voice today is dictation, actually, right?
Yes.
It's faithfully exactly what you say, ums, ahs, and mistakes, and all the above. This capability we're building called Rambler, which will roll out later this year, I'm really excited about because it reinvents the microphone on the keyboard, and in some ways reinvents the keyboard. So it reinvents input, which is, I think, really exciting. And you ramble, as I've been doing right now, and you kind of just speak and you kind of describe what you're trying to convey, and very quickly it formats that into something that is what you really are trying to get to. So it's, hey, could you go to the grocery, if you're going to the grocery store, and while you're there, do you mind picking up some extra fruit, bananas, strawberries, apples? Actually, never mind the bananas. We have too many of those. They go bad too quickly. Okay, see you soon. Okay. Now, if you take out all the unnecessary, for example, the bananas should just never be mentioned, right? And a whole bunch of other things, you get a very concise note that you can send it. And so that's Rambler, and we are excited to introduce that. And that's an example of intentful technology that really helps you in your daily life and goes much beyond a chatbot.
I'm very excited for Rambler. I've had Whisper Flow following me around with adverts for the longest time, but I'm just like, it's going to be in Android at some point, and then obviously Rambler was announced, and I was like, it's there. I don't have to pay a subscription fee for voice dictation anymore. Sundar recently noted that 75% of Google's AI code is AI generated and then approved by engineers now. Obviously, we've got competitors like Anthropic. I don't know about a specific figure, but they suggested that lots of Claude's own code is now written by AI nowadays. How do you feel like where you are shifting from managing software engineers to maybe managing AI prompters now, who then curate what is now getting built into the features?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call folks who are working with AI tools prompters. I think that having a very clear sense of system design and architecture and good engineering practices, all these things I think are still really important. I think that writing the code actually is something that we have been slowly over time nibbling away at as an industry. For example, we've when we introduced templates, for things, or when you had WYSIWYG, UI builders or what have you. These are all ways of helping you not write as much code. But in the end of the day, I think those other skills are really important. So you can get yourself beached on the shore pretty quickly with any of these tools if you're not creating good practices and design around what kind of system you want. And that's not to say you can't have AI help you with that, but I think we're still very much in a place where I think those skills are incredibly important and necessary. And from an Android perspective, we're doing a lot with this technology. So we're finding pockets where it's super helpful for testing. We're finding it's super helpful for helping us do bug triage. It's super helpful. The last time I was in the London office, which is where we are today, I met with a team that had figured out how to create a bug triage bot. This is many, many, many months ago. And that bug triage bot was getting effective enough where they didn't need to have somebody on pager rotation, to triage critical bugs when they came in. I don't know of any engineer that came to work at Google or any other tech company to do bug triage, and enjoyed that. I think it's something that we all have to do, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the funnest part of the job. So I think those are great examples of where we can get some help from this technology.
I have friends that are in QC testing, and their first job was to automate the QC testing, so they don't have to do it again, and then develop.
So many other things we can be doing that are productive, right?
Very much so. Interestingly, following on from that, you previously mentioned that there will become a point where you don't necessarily need a computer science degree to become a programmer nowadays.
Yeah.
Is that scary, or is that Oh, how does that make you feel in terms of like still retaining control over the like the finished product, essentially?
Well, I think a couple of things. One is I think I said some of that before the AI.
I think it was a year ago or so.
Yeah. I mean, like I think there's a lot of progress that's been made. So a couple of things I would say about it. One is Google used to require that you had a computer science degree to be an engineer at Google. Actually, even to be a product manager at Google, we really preferred, maybe required even, that you had a very technical degree. When I joined Google 17 plus years ago, it was very important that you had an engineering degree. And we've since dropped that.
Wow.
What we focus on is what do you actually know how to do, not what degree do you have. And so I think that's an obvious statement, but actually it's pretty important. And I think a lot of companies have made that transition or should be making that transition. And now when you add AI, I do think AI fluency is important. How to use these tools like any other tool is important. And so how do you ask the right questions that give you a sense of, does the person know how to use these tools in a productive way? So that's important. And then the other thing I would say is I think of computer science not as a degree on how to code. I think you can learn to code without going to university to get a computer science degree. I think, and to your point, more and more code is being written, for us. I do think a computer science degree is still very relevant and important. I think computer science may need to think about rebranding itself. I think it's a degree in problem solving. I think it's a way of thinking about problems, decomposing them, thinking about algorithms, thinking about how to make something efficient and solve it in a tractable way. And that I think is going to be valuable for all time. And so I do think the programs that are heavily focused on come in and learn how to code X, Y, or Z probably will be shifting more to learn how to break problems down and solve them in a comprehensive way. And I think that's still relevant today as it was yesterday.
What's a question that no one's actually asked so far that you would still love to answer? Is there something that's passionately was...
Oh, okay. That's a good question. I haven't gotten asked too much about recently about Android and Android openness, especially as there is this subject of sideloading that comes up. And I know people like to talk about it, but then sometimes people are a little bit nervous to ask me about it in interviews. So,
I was going to ask, and then I assumed not to ask because you would have heard that all when it all first came out.
I think sometimes folks don't ask. I think it's a good topic. So first of all, I think we, I've been working on Android for over a decade. Our community is very engaged. They have a lot of opinions. It's a good thing. We like that. It's what I think part of what makes Android special is the community around it. And so they have a lot of questions about this topic, and so I think for those of you who have been following along, Android has always been open, and one part of openness, not the only part of openness, but one part of openness is the ability to install any software that you want on your device, and typically that's called sideloading, right? And we have been getting a lot of feedback from consumers as Android has grown from something that we built thinking maybe some folks will use it to something that has over 3+ billion users around the world, has grown into to power devices that people depend on every day and contain some of the most sensitive and vital information in their lives, right? So we've gotten a lot of feedback from users, from banks, from all kinds of different organizations, consumer advocacy organizations, that especially in a number of countries where the phone is sometimes people's only computer in their life, that we need to do more to make sure that we are combating spam, scams, and fraud. Because when people are defrauded, it can be very, very impactful. Now, in some countries and with certain users who are much more, I would say, advanced with computing, they're not as much at risk for this, but they are at risk, by the way. I have friends who've been through this, right? But I think that we have to make sure we're balancing 3 billion users, and so what we've done is we basically said, look, there's a mode of your phone that you'll be able to switch into. It's a one-time change. and you can be able to sideload anything you want, and there's no restrictions on it, and it'll be just like it is today. And that's a choice you can make, and as an advanced user, you'll be able to go do that. And for users who don't opt into that, what they'll be able to do is install software that has the developer has done some kind of identification. So they're just saying, we're not going to review the software. The software, we're not going to say, this is okay software, that's not okay software. We do that in the Play Store, but that's not what we'll do for this. What we will say is, this developer that you're about to install this software from is actually who they say they are. And so when you see that you're installing software from somebody and they claim that they are bank of whatever, please install this software. They call you on the phone and they say, your account is under attack and we need to secure it for you. And here, let me send you a link. Please install this software, which is a very common scam. And they're claiming to be bank of something. When you get the dialog to install, it'll say, this is not that bank. We don't know who this is, right? And then you can, as a user, can make that choice. So that's a change, and I think people have had a lot of feelings about it. But I just kind of wanted to go through some of the rationale, and also that there is going to be a very clear way for people to be able to install the software.
That's great to hear. I don't think I've read or heard that anywhere before. So that's
not news here, but I think it's still not I wanted to discuss it because I think it is important and hasn't made its way to everybody.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Fantastic. No, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.